Hello, everyone. Uh, we're moving now to our final presentation of the evening. So, Roberto, would you like to take control? Here we go.
Yeah, we are ready. Thank you. Thank you to all. First of all, we really apologize for our English that is not really the best, since sometimes really funny, especially my speaking English. We will share the presentation between me, Giorgio, and Alice. Okay, we can go. Okay, I have a diagnosis of autism and HDD, and also Alice have a diagnosis of autism, and in the end of the 2000 years, we start to an observation about the way in which was supported the relationship between neurotypical and neurodivergent people. And we saw that merely consists of translating the non-conforming person to but there is a problem with the share. Did you see the slide?
Yes.
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 Okay. So most of the supporting the relationship was made of translating the non-conforming person and attempting to enable them to conform to the expected relation behaviors. And this asymmetric approach assumes that relational difficulty stems solely from the neurodivergent person deficit. I think that this kind of experience is common to every autistic people or HDD and so on. But we find that social science research challenged this point of view on two fronts. First, the studies by Heasman and Gillespie, and in particular Damian Milton, with the theory of the double empathy problem. Demonstrate that communication and relational problems are bidirectional. So problems in mutual understandings arise not from deficit in one party, but from the interaction between different neurotypes. Second, we find the anthropological work of Elinor Ochs that reveals, her studies reveals that autistic people have distinctive relational model and specific way of understanding social rules and particular approaches to social interaction. This research, alongside work by Davidson, Roskit, Sinclair, and others, suggests that this relational, communicative, and social characteristics are distinctive enough to consider autism as a culture in its own right. So different cognitive styles constituting their own culture or subculture with specific way of being, communicating, and relating to the world. So if we will consider autism and other conditions as a culture, we cannot place responsibility for relation and communication, communicative breakdown solely of nonconformity. Instead, we must approach it as a mediation between two cultures. This is why we drew our conceptualization from intercultural mediation, where relational and communicative differences stemming from cultural affiliation are addressed through reciprocal mediation. So nobody think that if a person from China and a person from Europe have problem in communication, this is because Chinese have some deficits. So the challenge was to extend this approach to perceptual, cognitive, relational, and communicative difference arising from significant neurobiological variation. Central to this approach is recognizing that no one is neutral. Personality, education, experience, social roles, all these shapes our worldviews. We argue that neurotype, given its constitutional potential, expresses in interdependence with environment factors, is also a positioning element. Elevating one neurotype to prototypical status and using it as a reference norm by which to measure adequacy in what we call a kind of hallucination, it leads us to believe that what cannot be explained according to the reference neurotype experience justify intervention to reduce distance from the norm. So, neurocultural mediation consists in supporting relationship between two people, characterized by substantial mutual difference, symmetrically, but with respect to both parties, with the aim of giving both tools for self-awareness and awareness of the variety of humankind, as Akin frames it. So I give the word to Giorgio, that will talk about the definition of the neurocultural mediation. Giorgio is a cultural mediator, and he also works in Red Cross, and he's also an educator.
Grazie, Roberto. Hi to everyone. My English is bad, so I wrote something I'm gonna read. I'm sorry. Well, I'm a cultural mediator and educator. I've been working with immigrants since 2002. But during the pandemic, I spent 3 years working in a child neuropsychiatric clinic. It was there, first on social media and then in person, that I met the friends from Neuropeculiar. I came across a Facebook post where they were talking about their idea of neurocultural mediation and looking for people willing to collaborate. Given my experience as a cultural mediator with foreign citizens and my brief stint with autistic children in child neuropsychiatry, I thought I could make a contribution. So why cultural mediation and neurocultural mediation? There are clear parallels between cultural diversity and differences in brain functioning. Culture provides us with the tools to cognitivize reality and experience. It fixes mental schemata, prejudice, stereotypes, categorizations, logical or illogical processes, guides our capacity for abstraction, and shapes each person's symbolic heritage. Mental schemata, prejudice, stereotypes, and categorization become entrenched as veritable brain functions. They drive behavior and actions and become internalized to the point of seeming natural. A striking example of how culture can structure brain functions comes from the role of the mother tongue in shaping certain cerebral structures and functions. Our personality is the product of genetic heritage, prenatal phase, and learning from life experiences. And personality is the expression of brain functioning. The mother tongue is independent of our genetic makeup and prenatal phase, showing how the environment can program certain brain systems. Learning a mother tongue leaves a strong imprint on a brain development. In the first years of life, the environment shapes the formation of the cerebral circuits that deal with language. Later, after these linguistic circuits have formed, when we learn a new language, we do with an Italian accent, which is why we have an we do it with an Italian brain, which is why we have an Italian accent, as you can hear. Another example concerns the stereotypes that Chinese and Koreans are good at math. The stereotype corresponds to a partial truth. When doing mental calculations, Chinese people use more visual and motor circuits, while English or Italian speakers use linguistic circuits. This happens because Chinese children grow up learning ideographic characters. Thus, the linguistic environment creates lasting differences in brain structures and functions. There is also a possible parallel between being autistic and being a foreigner. Jean Sinclair wrote in Don't Mourn for Us in 1993, and autism goes deeper than language and culture. Autistic people are foreigners in every society. The representation of foreigners is built on stereotypes, and autistic people are also stereotyped. The brilliant savant being is a classic example. Finally, our so-called Western culture tends to privilege extroversion over introversion, big picture thinking over attention to detail, engagement over avoidance, verticality in terms of hierarchies and priorities, verticality over horizontality, self-control over emotional expression, and flexibility over rigidity. In conclusion, an autistic person is a foreigner. Cultural mediation builds bridges between the native society and foreign people. So neurocultural mediation should build bridges between a so-called neurotypical society and neurodivergent people. So thank you for attention. Time for my English and the word to Alicia.
Thank you, Giorgio. Yeah, thank you all. Thank you for having us. So I continue this presentation talking about our project. So I'm going to read too, because my English also is not so good. So in Italy, efforts towards inclusion often translate into attempts to normalize the non-conforming person. There may be informational interventions towards the class group, often condescending in nature, aimed at stimulating tolerance of differences. Teacher training typically focuses on medical notions and lists of instructions about what to do with autistic children. And the support teacher is rarely conceived as support, to the class group to facilitate encounters between different humankinds. More often, they are mere support for the non-conforming individual. Yet the support teacher is in the perfect position to play the role of neurocultural mediator. They are already present within the school service. Norms dictate they should facilitate inclusion of all students. They are expected to be a reference for the entire class. They simply need effective tools for cultural deconstruction and mediation. So we propose requalifying the support teacher's role in terms of neurocultural mediation. The goal is not only to provide conflict resolution strategies between the class group and the non-conforming person, but to educate towards a different cultural approach to relational and expressive differences. This goes beyond explaining the non-conforming person to classmates. It involves translating each person in the room to themselves, highlighting the legitimate differences that set them apart from others and how these sometimes create distances. Understanding the role in terms of neurocultural mediation means educating future adults to interpret conflicts arising from relational distances as results of culturally determined interpretative distortions that fail to provide functional relationship tools. Our most significant application has been the research and intervention project Educating Children to Neurodiversity, developed by the Association Neuropeculiar APS. This involved 6 third grade classes from 5 schools across 3 Italian regions, South, Central, and Northern Italy. The project structure included preliminary training for teachers and a 20-hour program with children. We undertook a progressive interactive journey of discovery and meaning making about the neurodiversity characterizing the human race, manifested through wide differentiation of communicative, relational, sensory, and cognitive expressions. Using games, interactive activities, and multimedia materials we produced, children experienced different sensory perception, ways of paying attention, modes of communicating. Crucially, we dedicated significant time to open discussions on how these differences influence the meaning of lived experiences, emotions, behavior, and ways of relating to others. Rather than teaching about specific neurodivergencies, our primary goal was repositioning each child and each adult in the class. For instance, through various activities, children raised the question, so what is truly reality? They realized that until that moment, each had absolutized their own experience, believing it to be the only possible one, making them more inclined to negatively judge those exhibiting reactions not aligned with expectations. We observed that as the course progressed, children's amazement at discovering differences gradually became oriented towards identifying variables belonging to themselves. They conducted a path of self-awareness of their own functioning, which ceased to be absolute and became individual specific, therefore non-neutral. For the research component, we administered evaluation tests assessing parameters we identified using vignettes depicting possible real-life situation involving diversity, and we conducted qualitative surveys with teachers at the project's end and midterm. At the project's conclusion, we asked children if they believed adults in their lives would understand what they had learned if they tried to explain it. The unanimous answer was no. This response was particularly interesting to us because telling an adult about experiencing differences or that color blind people see different colors doesn't seem complicated. Therefore, we believe it's the emotional and relational implications. The relativization of one's experience, the change in perspective on oneself and others that children perceived as difficult to convey. For us, this confirmed that children felt they had gained something adults without similar experience would not understand. So it's just something that not belong to adults' mental world, world. In hindsight, discussion with teachers revealed the necessity of planning more articulated teacher involvement. We need more time dedicated not only to training on the neurodiversity paradigm, but also to deconstructing their own views on disability differences and the nature of relationship with these elements. We found that teachers often carry the same cultural conditioning governing relationships with the human differences common to the entire population. Due to their academic and professional training and the roles they play, they're inclined to further radicalize and naturalize these cultural meanings through the asymmetry characterizing their relationship with students. Without doing work on themselves in terms of true cultural deconstruction, the perpetuation of paternalistic and normalizing approaches remains inevitable, even when adopting neurodiversity language. After this first experience, we had the opportunity to bring this project in several other school contexts. And in one of these occasions, the project has been requested by an elementary school as a reparative intervention to solve the damage of a previous awareness intervention. The concept of neurocultural mediation extends beyond school. We identify workplaces, interpersonal relationships, socio health services as places requiring this approach. In each context, the mediator role differs from that of an operator working on the person's abilities. Following the perspective of the Index for Inclusion, full inclusion rejects the dichotomy between people who include and people to be included. In schools, it shouldn't be the disabled or autistic child included by others, classmates, teachers, and all school staff are people to whom inclusion should be guaranteed. Every person in that context, in any capacity, is simultaneously included and responsible for including. In conclusion, neurocultural mediation aims to break the generational transmission of the culture of alienation from difference. It educates future adults to interpret conflicts arising from relational distances as a result of culturally determined distortion failing to provide functional relationship tools. The significant obstacle we face is the self-referentiality of services and professionals. Many attempts to adopt mediation language, simply renaming traditional educator roles without engaging with mediation concepts, tools, practices. True neurocultural mediation requires paradigm shifts, not merely vocabulary changes. Our work continues, but these initial experiences demonstrate the potential for creating meaningful cultural changes when we commit to genuine symmetry, mutual deconstruction, and recognition that we all represent just one expression of human diversity and not the main one. So, thank you for listening to us.
Thank you all. There's been lots of comments in the chat and comments back and forth. We've got a few minutes though for questions and comments. There's anyone who'd like to ask a question? I was just saying in the chat, some years ago, I was in a project which had a UK-based team, a Greek team, and an Italian team. It was a sort of cross-national one. And there was, at one point, the Greek team wanted to take on an autistic advisor from their local community. And this is something that they'd never envisaged doing before, kind of thing. This was some years ago now. And the first meeting we had, there was a non-autistic teacher who could translate between English and Greek. And the autistic advisor they recruited could not speak English. And there was the meeting with the three of us. And then sometimes when the translation came to me, I'd laugh, and then the non-autistic person would look confused. And so, what are you laughing at? And I was sharing jokes with the autistic advisor through a translation who wasn't getting the joke. And so it was a fascinating kind of conversation where we were all scaffolding each other and finding a mutual space. It's just, yeah, the intersections between cultural differences and embodied differences and how they're culturally situated, it all kind of gets complicated. But there's been some really good comments in the chat if I want to look at. Yes, Joe's just made a comment in the chat about a PARC presentation a few years ago about being an autistic person with a sort of English or Australian background, I think it was, and living in France. It was a very interesting presentation because they were saying how communication breakdowns they could put blame their non-Frenchness, their foreign status in a sense. And so it got them through a lot of awkward situations sometimes, and they were given more leeway in communication because of that. So,
yes, I think one of the point is that in every culture, so I think in Italy, Italian culture, of course, is what Italian people absorb, but autistic Italian people are not in the same cultural position than other Italian people, the non-autistic Italian people. So there something strange happened in this perspective. I think it's very interesting to explore this kind of perspective because of this. Because I am an Italian person, of course. I am a Italian cultured person, but as an autistic person, I never been Italian as other Italian people are.
or
Not the
differently Italian, autistically
Yes.
Italian.
Yes.
Mi dai
Um,
il microfono, chiudi il coso.
Sì.
Yeah. If I can add one bit. Obviously, autism, tell that autism is a culture doesn't mean that it's not a social identity or so it's just a part of a complexity. But we can see also autism as a different culture. And and obviously some people write yes, but what is culture? But in the mainly definition of culture, especially from the anthropology point of view, but also from sociology, inside the culture there are also, as a part of culture, there are the behaviors is a part of the culture. So different behavior respect of the different relational model and so on, we can see that is a culture in the meaning of subculture. So inside the generic Italian or British culture, autistic people and other people that have a different approach in communication or relation can be considered as a subculture. And we find that this kind of approach is really effective. Is also easy to understand because most of the people, except fascists and so on, are used to consider the cultural differences. So the approach respect to a different culture is to try to understand and not to point the finger to say you're wrong, no, or you have a deficit. And we find that this approach is also effective with the teachers. We work a lot inside the schools. We make also some project with the University of Torino and Sapienza University of Rome. And teachers really easy understand this kind of approach. So they start to look at the neurological difference in a very different way. That is I think the good of this approach. That is really is most effective. That try to tell that autism is different, that you can understand that autistic people do not like small talk and so on. This kind of approach is less effective because also create stereotypes. The neurocultural mediation approach is more easy to understand and is more effective. We find that there are some teachers that change their mind and approach the diversity, the difference in a different way, more constructive, more positive, more inclusive also.
Maybe it's something that they can inherently empathize with, and it's something that resonates with them, cultural difference, and something that one experiences in all walks of life. So in a sense, it's easier to experience something similar or that resonates than rather than the embodied differences in a sense. So trying to get a non-autistic person to understand, say, sensory sensitivities, that's a hard one. Because they're not going to experience it themselves. And so I think that's where some of the double empathy problems gets it really tricky, is some of those experiences that can't easily be shared in some way related to. It leaves a lot of questions. Unfortunately, we're a bit out of time. A lot of people have had to leave already. But I think we're going to be continuing these workshops, and so hopefully a lot of you can come to some of the upcoming workshops that we have and carry these conversations on in different ways, because there's so much connecting the presentations across the workshops as well. And so, yeah, a lot to think about this evening. Leaves us with a lot to take forward. So thanks to all our presenters tonight, to Alison and Katie, to Roberto, Alice and Giorgio. And all this work is available in written form, of course, in the Double Empathy Reader. So if you haven't already gotten a copy, there's Alison putting it out. So,
and the sessions will be sort of broken up into the three presentations. They've been recorded if all the presenters are happy that they've been recorded, and they will be uploaded to the Park YouTube area. And once that's done, we'll notify everyone and let them know, so that we can go back and spend a bit more time and, you know, reflect on things too. Thank you everybody.
Next
Really
workshop
interesting.
will be in a couple of weeks.